All right, we've roped in a political analyst, Bongani Mahlangu, for his analysis. Bongani, a very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for your time. So, as we look at the various issues before the MK party, I want us to start with what happened at the KwaZulu-Natal legislature recently. So the party says it will revisit the motion of no confidence against Premier Ntuli in the new year. I mean, what does the failure of this motion tell us about the MKP's actual influence inside the legislature?
No, greetings, Unati, colleagues in studio and viewers at home. So going to the KZN issue, in order to get that motion passed, that's number one, you have to obviously engage and lobby other political parties within the legislature. And in this case, they were hoping that the NFP would come through, of which it did not. Another thing that they were banking on, even before the voting would commence, is the speaker agreeing to a secret ballot. And I heard Mzobe saying that they're going to contest that in court. And they should, if they want to, and maybe they might even have some local standing legal grounds on it, because you would remember the Constitutional Court judgment that's, I think it was titled the secret ballot judgment. It says that the speaker does have the power to exercise discretion. However, the exercising of that discretion must be subject to crucial factors that are appropriately seasoned with consideration of rationality. So there's a rationality test that must then be conducted. So if an argument is made that if certain people were to vote openly and maybe vote in support of MK, it would compromise their lives, the lives of their loved ones, and so forth and so on. That could be a case, and maybe they must test it in court. But what the MK has continuously demonstrated, especially in KwaZulu-Natal, it's the first point that I made, their inability to engage. You would remember, the MK sits in this position now where they have majority of seats in that legislature, but they are not in power, or at least in the executive. It's because of the fumbled negotiations several or over 12 months ago, when everyone was engaging, they fumbled. They did not engage. They did not have a strategy to engage their colleagues in that legislature. And it's the same thing that has happened here today. So them being excluded is not anyone's fault, but their fault, even if they make an argument of majority. Majority becomes relative. What is majority? The one that has the most number of seats, even though there's no one party that has a simple majority, is majority those that can come together and form government by a simple majority of 51%. So majority argument, it's neither here nor there. It's subject to how you want to argue it. But MK must start learning how to conduct itself, at least politically, and engage and lobby others within the opposing benches of that legislature, and maybe they would make some progress.
Yeah, and I want to stay on that point, in terms of the inability to engage. I mean, in that interview, Makazela Mzobe touched on leadership issues. Now, as the party recently marked its second-year anniversary, its leadership has dismissed claims that internal instability cost the party control of KwaZulu-Natal. Oftentimes, we see in this country how parties with electoral momentum struggle with internal coherence, so to speak. I mean, is the MK party facing a similar growth pains moment, as it were?
No, indeed it does, but it's also important that we nuance it. Other organizations would have these growth pains because there's a contest of leadership, contest of power. In MK, it is clear there's only one supreme leader. He makes the decisions as and when, and those decisions at time might not even constitutional with the MK constitution. For example, I once raised this on this very show that the disciplinary processes of Ututuzile Zuma when she was swearing and doing all kinds of things targeted towards Floyd at the time. If you read the MK constitution, that is termination of membership. You can go through a process, but the outcome is very clear when you conduct yourself in such a way. We have also seen the inclusion of a second deputy president is not in the MK constitution, a second deputy president position. Neither was a process to amend the constitution in order to enable such a position to arise conducted. And also we can make plenty of other examples, but it is only one individual who makes those decisions, whether they are constitutional or not, they suffice and they are implemented. So now, in this case then of MK, the instability, or rather the growth pains, are not necessarily because of the contest of leadership, but because of other things that are really neither here nor there. If we have seen the administrative instability, not knowing when to make a decision, not knowing what decision to make, it can also be evidenced by how they've conducted themselves in parliament, at least up until now, where they were or are the official opposition, but you would find that the EFF was doing more than that what they were doing. In fact, the EFF was the de facto official opposition. It's only now that they are starting to find their feet, and we are seeing this also in their performance in the ad hoc committee. So those are growth pains, but we can't just generalize them and liken them to the growth pains that, for instance, the EFF would have experienced when they were established, when a certain number of members and leaders of Action SA left, also what is recently happening in Maibuye. So they are quite nuanced and they are quite unique to the MK party.
And as we wrap up our conversation, Bongani, if the MK party is serious about taking just, another run at power in KwaZulu-Natal in the new year, what must change organizationally, especially just given also the upcoming local government elections later next year or early in 2027?
Well, organizationally, have people that will be there for the longer term, have people that are also empowered to make decisions at a local level. I can bet you, if there were any engagements that would have taken place as far as lobbying is concerned in KZN, going into what happened with regards to the motion, you'd find that the provincial leaders or the caucus leaders and members were not part of the engagement processes, even with the NFP or the EFF or any other organization represented in that legislature. Why? Because they are not empowered to do so. You might find that it was only one individual who was at the forefront of engagement, and that individual, it's known, that individual may not necessarily have the relevant energy or the required energy and other things as well, as far as what is required with this politics of today, politics of GPU, politics of GNU, and so forth and so on. So even if they call you some political grandmaster and so forth and so on, that has been proven not to be effective in any case. So empower other people in that legislature. Those are their colleagues. They work with them every day. They should be able to engage them during tea time or lunchtime and so forth. And then maybe senior leaders can come at a certain point. So decentralized power. You can't have one person being everything, the be all end all, to a point where that individual needs to be waited for to come from overseas in order to make decisions. Otherwise, the party cannot move. So they really have to strengthen their administration and operations and also empower others. And I think maybe that would lead to more sustainability going forward and also more trust and confidence with regards to their peers, because I bet you if maybe they would have engaged some ANC leaders, they would have reached a certain outcome, but they did not. So those are some of the things I would say maybe they need to strengthen their internal power sharing and internal administration.
All right, Bongani, thank you so much for your insights. Really do appreciate your time. Bongani Mahlangu is a political analyst there for us.